What would you do with a request for $200 billion?
I would reject it. We know that in times when you're facing a budget deficit, as so many American families do, struggling every day to make ends meet, they set their priorities and they fund those priorities. They have to pay their rent. That's where the money goes first. We have massive challenges in this country, and there was no voter a year and a half ago who thought where we need to spend money is $200 billion on a war in Iran. This is a war of choice by this president that has really essentially bankrupting the American public, both as taxpayers and as consumers, as we're seeing higher prices at the pump and soon for our groceries as well.
Well, and when we consider those higher prices, Congressman, I'm not sure if you just heard our colleague, our analyst there, Mike McGlone, suggesting that he sees kind of 2008 recessionary type forces at play here, that ultimately he is expecting the check on higher energy prices is going to be demand destruction and a real growth slowdown. Is that also your assessment here as a member of the Financial Services Committee?
I mean, we should look at the last year. We have just seen the largest tax cut in human history. You would think it would be supercharging job growth throughout the country. We've seen zero job growth in the last 6 months since Liberation Day, when Trump started hiking all these tariffs. When we were supposed to be building a lot of manufacturing jobs, we've lost 72,000 manufacturing jobs in the United States. That should tell us something. They're doing everything they can to prime the pump, and jobs are not responding. That really portends a very dark future for us, particularly as we're now looking at spending on other priorities when we could be focused on critical issues here at home.
We saw a statement a short time ago from Taxpayers for Common Sense, Congressman, and pretty interesting here. The group's president, Steve Ellis, says taxpayers haven't gotten any clarity from the administration about the goals, the costs of war, which he outlines now the $200 billion supplemental request. He says, to be clear, this funding is not about supporting the troops. The Pentagon got an 18% boost in spending this year. If that's the case, Congressman, what is it about? Is this a Pentagon that's bracing for a longer war?
Well, that's a good question. I think we're all deeply concerned about that. I'm not sure this president has the attention span for a longer war. And frankly, we haven't articulated, or we haven't seen this president articulate any achievable objective with a short or a long war. So I think we need to first understand what is the objective with this war, because so far all we've seen is certainly a degradation of Iran's military capacity. We know our troops are the best in the world, but we haven't seen the actual accomplishment of any objective. We know we have higher oil prices. We know we've got all of our allies that are furious with us and won't help us in the Strait of Hormuz precisely because of our willingness to go it alone. And we've helped our adversaries. Russia and China, of course, are benefiting from our willingness to reduce sanctions on Russian oil. This is not a war that has accomplished any meaningful objective for the American public.
Well, as we consider higher oil prices, which you mentioned, Congressman, obviously that is translating to prices at the pump. I believe on average in California, gas prices are well above $5 a gallon. If the White House were to come to Congress and request a gas tax holiday, would you be supportive of that in the name of relief at the pump for your constituents?
Well, I'm certainly open to considering many options, but we know what happens if the gas tax goes away. It means we don't have the basic infrastructure we critically need in this country. I think a better approach is let's wrap up this war and refocus U.S. public resources on U.S. infrastructure, because that's what that gas tax funds. And what we really need to be doing is investing in this country and not spending abroad.
Well, you know, a lot of economists would tell you that the gas tax holiday simply would increase demand, which sends prices even higher. Congressman, what are you paying last time you filled the tank in California?
Yeah, we're paying a lot. I drive an electric car, so I couldn't tell you what I pay, but I can tell you my neighbors pay way too much already. Look, I think those economists are right. Fundamentally, simply priming the pump with more demand is not going to help provide tax or price relief that so many consumers are burdened by. And let's keep in mind all the other ways this is affecting consumers. We know a huge hit is being felt by an awful lot of farmers as a result of a big spike in fertilizer costs. A third of the world's fertilizer comes from this region. That means we're all going to be paying for it many months to come at the grocery aisle.
Well, and then there's also the borrowing cost consideration. We saw a red headline cross the terminal earlier today, Congressman. Mortgage rates at a 3-month high with the 30-year average at 6.22%. Obviously, there is now a live conversation of a Federal Reserve that might not only not be cutting this year, but whether rate hikes could be back on the table if we're going to see an inflationary shock from energy. On mortgage rates, though, given you sit in the Financial Services Committee, can you tell us what's going to happen with the housing bill that would address it more from the supply side? Are you going to conference? Is that your anticipation?
Well, I certainly hope we can get to conference. I know that right now the battle seems to be between Republicans in the House and Republicans in the Senate about what's going to happen. Obviously, they control both houses. I was happy to see a few of my bills get included in the version that got approved by both houses. But the bottom line is we need to get to yes. We critically need more housing supply. That is something that Democrats and Republicans can agree upon. So let's get this piece of legislation passed. There's much more we need to do to be able to help get red tape out of the way and accelerate housing production in this country.
We only have a minute left, Congressman. The Department of Homeland Security has been closed now for 33 days, and we saw the president's pick to run the department clear committee on the Senate side this morning, Mark Wayne Mullen. I'm wondering your thoughts on what happens next here. TSA agents are driving Uber instead of going to work to make money. How long will this last? We're at 33 now. What number will we be talking about when it ends?
That's an important question. I know a very painful reality for a lot of employees, our Coast Guard, TSA, many others who critically deserve to get paid. I co-sponsored legislation that would enable us to pay all the other employees, including TSA and Coast Guard, so that we can hash out what we need to resolve with regard to reforms to ICE, get them paid separately. Currently, that bill is a subject of a discharge petition because the House leadership on the Republican side won't allow it to get to the floor. So we're hoping we can get some Republicans on board and get a vote.